can do the same thing with chat. Click on it.
We should need to chat.
Pop it out. And then if you need to tell anybody things, you can speak to people privately on that too. That can be handy.
If I needed to speak to her privately, I can do. Can I do it through her box? Oh, chat, yeah. Yeah,
So that makes her right, and then you're only chatting with her.
Yeah,
It's handy sometimes in case somebody's got a barking dog or something. You can tell them why you muted them.
okay, but we don't want. Okay, cool.
Yeah, a lot of it's just sort of fishing around, but those are little tricks that I've learned that can be really helpful.
Let's mute ourselves.
And that was the other thing I was going to tell you. On these new mics, see when you muted it?
I'm going to unmute us.
Unmute us.
I'm going to unmask.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I think Luke's about ready to get us started here.
Can you all hear us? Good. You'll hopefully be a little bit patient with me tonight. Usually Kyle has been helping us out with the Zoom stuff, but we're trying to spread that load around and spread the knowledge. So I'm giving it a go tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and go through our little spiel that we've been doing for all of our Zoom meetings. So good evening and welcome to the July 9th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. My name is Luke Mortensen, and I will be facilitating the Zoom video portion of the meeting, as well as presenting one of our cases. With me here tonight is Catherine Week, our staff liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We will work alongside the chair, who is on remote video, to facilitate the meeting's proceedings. Currently, I have everybody muted so we can talk through the general ground rules for tonight's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand corner of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you are muted, a red line will appear over the icon. This will make it easier for everyone to hear the meeting. Just remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In the menu, you can also turn your camera on or off by clicking the video icon located next to the microphone icon. For the purposes of this public meeting, please keep your video on for the duration. If you are participating by phone, you can enter *6 to mute and unmute your phone. Somewhere on your Zoom screen, you will also see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles are of all the meeting participants. Be aware that we will not be screen sharing as a part of the meeting this evening. All attachments, reference materials, and submissions from the public are included in the agenda packet. A few reminders to ensure that the provisions of the Kansas Open Meetings Act are met. Board members, you must state your name and title each time you speak. Members of city staff must also state their name and title each time they speak. I would also ask that applicants and members of the public identify themselves each time before they speak to ensure that everyone is able to follow along. Individuals who signed up in advance to provide public comment remotely will be called upon by name. When you are called on, please unmute your listening device and state your name before speaking. The chair will then call for in-person public comment for those who are physically present. Staff will direct you to the podium to speak while following social distancing and safety protocols. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, staff will call on each board member individually to provide their vote. Staff will then need to announce whether the motion carried and the count of the vote. I want to again remind everyone to please mute yourself when you are not speaking. At this point, I will turn the meeting over to our chair.
Good evening. This is Chairman Clark here, and I'm going to call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals for June 9th, 2020, and we will start things off with a roll call, and I'll ask staff to do that.
Good evening, Catherine Week, staff liaison. I'm going to go ahead and call roll. Clark,
Present.
Falvey,
Present.
Gardner,
Here.
Harrod,
Here.
Shalinski,
Present.
Wampler, Weisner. Okay, we have quorum.
Great. This is Chairman Clark. Moving on to the second portion of this evening's meeting, the communications. Do we have any communications to come before the board this evening?
Catherine Week, staff liaison. We did not have any additional communications. We did receive one communication. I believe it was in your packet.
Thank you. Do we need to disclose any ex parte communications this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next point. Will there be any agenda items deferred this evening?
Catherine Week, staff liaison. We have no items that are going to be deferred this evening.
Thank you. This is Chairman Clark. Then again, announcing that we'll move on to Section D, approval of the minutes from the previous two meetings, it looks like. maybe just for June 4th?
Looks like there's two. Yeah, no, there's just June 4th. It's two formats, PDF and HTML, sorry.
Thank you.
Board Member Gardner moves to approve the minutes.
Herod seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please do us the honor of calling roll call on that, or taking a vote?
Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Shalinski.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Then we will begin the public portion of this evening, starting with the only agenda item we have, item number 1. We'd love to hear from staff.
Good evening, all. Luke Mortensen, planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. As Board Member Clark just noted, tonight's only agenda item is a variance request from the required side setback for an accessory structure as expressed in Section 20-533 of the Land Development Code. The request is for a reduction from 5 feet to 0 feet for a proposed accessory garage structure to be located at 2115 Tennessee Street. I'll begin with a bit of history about the subject property. The property was platted as Lot 53 of the Fairgrounds Addition in 1909. Documents provided by the applicant indicate the existing house and existing accessory structure were constructed between 1925 and 1926. Both platting and construction took place prior to the adoption of zoning in the City of Lawrence in 1927. The existing accessory structure was constructed prior to zoning and has since become a non-conforming structure. Per Article 15 of the Land Development Code, non-conforming structures may be altered or renovated without a variance. However, since the applicant is proposing a full reconstruction, a variance is required to memorialize the existing accessory structure's setback from the side lot line. There are some unique conditions based off of platting and zoning. The subject property is zoned RS5 Single Dwelling Residential District and has a platted width of 50 feet. RS5 lots in the city are located in neighborhoods like East Lawrence, Old West Lawrence, and the Oriad neighborhood. Most have rear alleys that provide vehicular access. The subject property and the surrounding Fairgrounds Addition do not have rear alleys and did not develop with alley-oriented garages. The code allows accessory structures on lots that abut alleys to reduce their side setback to 0 feet. Since the subject property does not have an alley, it cannot take advantage of this exception, even though the characteristics of the subject property are similar to another RS5 alley-adjacent lot. Staff would like to make sure it's clear that the intent is not to place the structure exactly on the property line. Without a survey, the applicant does not know exactly how far the existing structure is from the property line. He believes it to be approximately 1 foot. Per staff's recommendation, the applicant has asked for a reduction to 0 feet so that the structure can be replaced in its existing location, even if that location is 12 inches from the property line or 10 inches from the property line. The goal is to rebuild the structure in its existing location, not any closer to the property line. Staff does not believe the variance will adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. An approved variance will not restrict or hinder existing adjacent detached dwelling land uses from continuing to function as detached dwellings. Staff believes strict adherence to the code required setback may constitute an unnecessary hardship. The applicant is seeking to reconstruct the existing accessory garage structure in the same location and in a like fashion. He is seeking to satisfy the code-required off-street parking amount of at least 2 off-street spaces for a detached dwelling land use. Granting the variance to memorialize the reduced setback will not grant additional property rights to the applicant. Rather, it will allow him to satisfy his off-street parking requirement in a location that was legally established and has existed for almost 100 years. Additionally, there is another code-compliant accessory garden structure that prevents the garage from being built in another location. Not permitting the applicant to maintain the structure's existing location may be a hardship. Staff does not believe the proposed setback memorialization will adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. Even with a reduced setback, the structure will be located entirely within the subject property. Staff cannot and will not approve a building permit that indicates any portion of the structure will cross the property line, including footings and eaves. The proposed replacement structure adheres to the remaining standards for accessory structures as expressed by the remaining portions of Article 20-533. Staff believes granting the proposed variance is in line with the general spirit and intent of the Land Development Code. It is mostly consistent with previous variances granted for structures that were legally constructed within a required setback. The intent of the code section related to accessory structures is to ensure that those structures remain subordinate to their primary structures, that they maintain privacy of adjacent lots, and that they do not encumber the front setback. The applicant's proposed structure satisfies these goals. To conclude, staff recommends the board approve the variance to reduce the required side setback from 5 feet to 0 feet for the proposed reconstructed accessory structure at 2115 Tennessee Street. The applicant is online with us tonight, and we do have a member of the public who is wishing to speak as well. And with that, I can stand for questions.
This is Chairman Clark. Thank you, staff. Does anybody on the board have any questions for staff at this time? All right, seeing none, we would love to hear from the applicant. If they are interested in sharing anything, feel free to introduce yourself if you would like to speak.
Thank you, members of the board. I'm not sure if you all can hear me. Excellent. My name is Michael Monroe. I'm the property owner. I have nothing to add to the staff report, but I'm happy to entertain any questions if you all have any of me, and just thank you all for considering my application today.
This is Chairman Clark. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? All right. Seeing none, I would like to open the public portion of this evening's conversation. If anybody would like to share from the public, please share your thoughts.
C.L. Maurer. I live at 2121 Tennessee. I don't live there. I own 2121 Tennessee. It's the lot to the south where this building connects to. And I understand it's been there for 100 years. I understand that, and it's been worked out fine. What I don't understand is we've lived with it all this time, but if he builds a new structure and it's 1 foot off, say it is 1 foot off the property line, I put a fence up, I have a 1 foot gap between the fence and his building. How does that get maintained? It would not look like a jungle. That's my concern. If you do it 5 foot like it's supposed to be, then he can maintain his yard between, if there's a fence up, and his building. If he does it to 0 and puts it right on the property line, then if he wants to maintain or paint that structure, he has to come on my property to do that. So the 5 foot setback is a good reason for it, and that is for maintenance around the building. That is the reason I'm saying this should be denied. I know the code says that for alley uses, you had 0 setbacks. This isn't an alley case. It never has been. And so new codes come into line, and the old property has to go by those new codes. I'm here to answer any questions that the staff has or commission. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the public at this point in time?
This is Commissioner Barry Shalinsky, and I have a question. Would you object to a setback that is more than the 1 foot but less than the 5? Say, for example, 3 feet. which was actually the amount that was in the first zoning ordinance that was adopted in the 20s.
I think 3 foot, you could probably get that to be maintained. You just got to make sure you do it. I mean, it's, yeah. Yeah, 3 feet would work. I'm willing to listen to that, yes.
Luke, can you pull the property up just to see?
Do you see that?
Can you check to see how much? Do we know how much?
This is
No, I don't think so.
Commissioner Shalinski again. I guess I'd like to ask the same question of the applicant, whether that is something that they could live with.
Thank you for the question. So I think that that is certainly something that we could look at. It would be something that we'd need to talk to our contractors about and see if that allows for a feasible range of turn for vehicle access into the garage. If we move it an additional 3 feet, which would be a total of 3 feet from the property line. I will say, to Mr. Mauer's point, there is a fence existing between the two properties now, one that we constructed and one that was previously constructed, and it has not been an issue for maintenance of the fence that we constructed adjacent to the existing dwelling now. So I'm not sure that that would be a challenge in the future. But to his point, I do understand that it would be an inconvenience if at any time we as the property owners needed to access his property to do maintenance on the accessory dwelling structure. And we certainly would not do that lightly. It would be something that we would obviously communicate to our neighbors and ensure that he was comfortable if at any time we ever needed to access his property to complete that maintenance, which has not happened to date.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public here this evening? This is Chairman Clark. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public portion.
Member Gardner, so moved.
Shoot.
Member Harrod,
Can
seconds.
we make sure there's a survey done before when he does rebuild, please?
All right, I've got a motion and a second to close the public portion of this meeting. Staff, could you please do a call for us?
Before I do a call, did you want to acknowledge that the public is still asking you a question, or do you want to proceed with the vote?
Point of order, I'd ask that you proceed with the vote.
Okay. The motion and second, and I'll ask for the roll. So this is Catherine Week, Staff Liaison. Clark?
Aye.
Falvey?
Aye.
Gardner?
Aye.
Harrod?
Aye.
And Shalinski.
Aye.
And motion passes.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Thank you, staff. What does the board think?
Member Gardner, Chairman, I own a home in this neighborhood. I completely support this variance request, and I will make a motion that the board approve the variance to reduce the required interior side setback from 5 feet to 0 for the proposed accessory structure at 2115 Tennessee Street, based on the findings of the staff and that meets the 5 conditions outlined in 2013-09 G1. I have no problem with him being able to maintain it with if he already has a fence, being able to maintain the newly constructed building in the same spot with the same position. And these lots are really skinny, and being able to live with what was there and rebuild it is completely reasonable.
Chairman Clark, thanking the general for his motion. Would anybody else have any thoughts or comments they would like to share?
Hearing nothing, Member Harrod would second the general's motion.
Chairman Clark, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance. Staff, would you please give a call?
Catherine Week, Staff Liaison, so I'll give the roll. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Shalinski,
Aye.
and the motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much to the applicant and to the public for their thoughts on this this issue item.
Thank you as well.
Michael, I'll email you tomorrow, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is Chairman Clark. Is there any other things that need to come before the board this evening?
Catherine Week, Staff Liaison, we do not have any miscellaneous items this evening. I will note, just for your knowledge, I believe we do have one item scheduled for next month.
Chairman Clark, thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Board Member Falvey, I'll motion.
Board Member Gardner, second.
Chairman Clark, seeing if staff would give us a roll call on that motion.
Catherine Week, Staff Liaison, Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
and Shalinski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Chairman Clark, thanking everyone. Have a great Thursday evening.
Thank you.